Okay, we'll start with this. Well, Michael Hunter versus Filipe Hrgovich has been ordered by the IBF for the #1 mandatory slot. This is as a result of Charles Martin, who was originally tabbed for the fight with Michael Hunter. This is as a result of Charles claiming an injury. I want to say I don't believe for a second that Charles is actually injured. What I actually think is going on with Charles is he's on standby. He's on reserve for someone on PBC Island. It could be Deontay Wilder. It could be Luis Ortiz, as we have been hearing rumors the last couple of days about a fight with both.
Not both at the same time.
But rumors in reference to both of those fighters. Rumors about a Charles Martin versus Deontay Wilder fight. Rumors about a Charles Martin versus Luis Ortiz fight.
This is a missed opportunity for Charles.
If you look at this from the Charles Martin PBC angle, this is a missed opportunity for that fighter, because on the other side of this Michael Hunter fight would have been a mandatory slot that would have allowed the winner of Hunter versus Martin to square off against the winner of Joshua versus Fury. The winner of Hunter versus Martin would have either gotten to fight the winner of Joshua versus Fury or put them in a situation where they have to forfeit the IBF title as a result of non-compliance. Either way, with the IBF's reputation for being the most stringent sanctioning body when it comes to its mandatories, you want to become the #1 contender via the IBF. You want to become their mandatory challenger, because if you do, you know you're either going to get your title shot or you're going to get your title. And that's what Charles Martin is now missing out on.
But what Michael Hunter may now be benefiting from.
The deadline for Michael Hunter and Filipe Hrgovich to reach a deal is February 26th. That's Friday. These guys only got a couple of days to iron out the terms for a fight, and I'm confident that they will. You've got to remember what side of the street Filipe Hrgovich is on. Oh, granted that Michael Hunter is a network and promotional free agent, but Filipe is under Matchroom. He's co-promoted by Sarlin Promotions and Matchroom.
They don't call Fast Eddie for nothing.
I'm confident a deal can and will be reached that will see Michael Hunter squaring off with Filipe Hrgovich for a shot at the winner of Joshua versus Fury, which is a titillating proposition in it of itself. I'll say that when it comes to Filipe, I've been waiting for Filipe to step up in class. Understand that Filipe Hrgovich is from the same Olympic cycle as Tony Yoka. Tony Yoka, who has faced some seasoned veterans rather early in his career. Johan Duapas, Christian Hammer. I've been waiting for Filipe to make a similar step up, take a similar step up in competition as his Olympic rival, Tony Yoka.
He'd be doing that in Michael Hunter,
who more often than not is referred to as a high-risk, low-reward kind of guy. Michael Hunter is a skilled fighter and a quality operator. Lest we forget, he fought to a draw with the same Alexander Povetkin that cold-slept Dillian Whyte. Dillian Whyte, who is a career heavyweight. Dillian Whyte, who is ranked as one of the 10 best fighters in the entire division. Where Dillian couldn't finish that fight on his feet, Michael did.
That's who Filipe is going to be fighting.
This is a titillating matchup that could very well lead to yet another titillating matchup, as the winner of this fight will advance to either face the winner of Joshua versus Fury, 1 and 2, at some point, or force the winner of that fight to forfeit the IBF title. And this is what happens when a sanctioning body is doing its job.
Moving its ranks along to make sure the best are fighting the best.
Allowing top-tier talent to permeate fight by fight, order by order, mandate by mandate. You know, the IBF often gets a lot of guff for what names you do and don't see in their ranked standings, and boxing fans, being the opinionated and blithering idiots that they are, they don't seem to understand that it's the fighter and the fighter's team that decide what avenue of opportunity they want to take. You know, it's up to the fighter and his team to decide whether or not they want to go the IBF route, the WBA, the WBC, or the WBO route. Thus, if you don't see certain names in the IBF's ranked standings, that's not the IBF's fault. That's the fighters and their teams, and
that's on them.
If you want to be ranked by the IBF, you pay your sanctioning fees and participate in your eliminators till you ultimately rise to the top, assuming that you can. But if you don't see certain names in their ranked standings, that's not the IBF's fault. That's not their decision. That's the fighters and their team's decision.
But you tell me if this is bad news.
Tell me again about how the IBF's ranked standings suck.
Boxing fans are fucking stupid, man.
But stupid boxing fans aside, this is welcome news. And this is an example of what can happen when a sanctioning body is actually doing its job, moving their ranks along and making sure that the best talent permeates to the top in combat, in a contest.
Just imagine if the other three were like this.
As far as Charles Martin, as I stated earlier, this is a missed opportunity for him. I mean, I'm not even sure how fighting Luis Ortiz or fighting Deontay Wilder, I'm not sure how either of those fights with either of those fighters would bring him closer to a world title shot, a world title opportunity. And if that's not what you're building towards, what the hell are you building towards? You know, those fights ain't final eliminators. This fight would have been this fight with Michael Hunter.
They're all mildly intriguing matchups.
But this one would have been an investment in Charles Martin's future. You know, in the past, Charles has said that he wants a rematch with Anthony Joshua, as Anthony Joshua became the IBF champion, the IBF title being the very first world title that Anthony Joshua won. You know, he won that title from the then unbeaten Charles Martin. Ever since then, Charles has said he wants a rematch. He wants a second shot at that guy. This fight with Michael Hunter would have brought him one step closer to that rematch, one step closer to that second shot. But he's mysteriously gone injured.
Which I don't believe for a fucking second.
Injured or not, it's his loss. If I'm being honest, if Charles Martin has to get injured so that I can watch Hunter versus Hrgovich, hey, break a leg, man.
Fuck it.
Hunter versus Hrgovich is a better fight anyway. It's a much more intriguing matchup. I expect that by the end of the week, we'll have definitive news about the future of Hunter versus Hrgovich and when and where we can expect to see that fight take place. In other news, Greece's own Khalia Karuni seems to have two separate fights with two separate fighters on two separate fight dates coming up very soon. This weekend, she's going to be taking on Jimenez, a rather unheralded opponent, and presumably, if she makes it through that, on Saturday, on the 20th of March, she's going to be taking on Diana Gonzalez in a fight that's supposed to be for the WBC International Super Featherweight title. This is essentially a fight that would bring her closer to a Terry Harper fight. Terry Harper, who's the current reigning WBC Super Featherweight champion. And I want to say that I see a change in Khalia Karuni. She's
more driven,
more focused than I've ever seen her in the past. And this change that I'm seeing in Khalia is a change for the better, the right kind of change.
She's supposed to fight Layla McCarter.
But her handler, Alessandro Gelki, pulled her out of that fight, out of that situation, because he didn't trust the event's promoter, the event's coordinator, who seems to have had a very sketchy past, very sketchy dealings. Thus, he pulled Khalia out of that situation. Perhaps that was the right move. I think that this upcoming fight this weekend looks to be a learning fight. It's not a fight that's registered on BoxRec. If you go by BoxRec, Khalia Karuni hasn't had a fight since August of 2019, and that's not exactly accurate because Khalia Karuni was in action in Mexico very recently. Why that fight isn't registered on there is anybody's guess.
Fight might have been on the chicken gizzard circuit.
And this upcoming fight with Jimenez, yet another fight that doesn't appear on BoxRec, this fight might be on the chicken gizzard circuit as well in preparation for the fight in March against Diana Gonzalez.
Could be that way.
And essentially what that communicates to me is that these are learning fights that Khalia Karuni is participating in. And given the fact that Khalia Karuni doesn't come from the same amateur background as a Chantel Cameron, a Michaela Mayer, a Natasha Jonas, given that she doesn't come from an extensive amateur pedigree and she's not an Olympian, these learning fights that she's participating in are a necessary evil.
I think she's on the right track.
Going about things the right way. All the focus in the super featherweight division revolves around unification matches with the four world champions that are there. Terry Harper, Hyun-Mi Choi, Michaela Mayer, and Maeva Hamadouche.
That's what most of the attention is.
And while all of those events are unfolding with all of those world champions, Khalia Karuni is working silently in the background to improve her skills, hone her craft, and sharpen herself as a fighter. I have to say that she's going about things the right way. She really is. Khalia sports a professional record of 10 wins and 2 losses, never been stopped. And you know, based on her trajectory, based on what she's doing, when she surfaces, we might see a new and improved Khalia Karuni. Best wishes to her moving forward. In other news, it appears that Marisela Cornejo is going to be taking on Alma Ibarra on a Ring City USA broadcast on March 18th. This will be the first we've seen of Marisela Cornejo in some time. She was last in action in September of 2019 when she lost that rematch to Frenchon Cruz. It's been over a year, well over a year, since Marisela Cornejo has seen any action, and the same is true for Alma Ibarra, who hasn't had a fight since November of 2019, when she lost a decision to Raquel Miller.
And this is a super middleweight contest.
It's 168 pounds, where Frenchon Cruz holds 2 of the 4 world titles at the weight, and Aline Cideruz holds the other 2. There are 2 unified champions at 168 pounds.
Winner of this fight will bring themselves one step closer to them.
I want to say that, comparatively, Marisela Cornejo really has faced the better quality of competition. It's basically saying that whilst things haven't always gone Marisela's way, she has been in there with much better fighters, more times than Alma Ibarra, whose level of competition has been mostly pedestrian. Marisela has been in there with Frenchon Cruz 2 times, Kali Reese, Aaron Toughhill, Lisa Garland. She gave Samantha Pill and Sydney LeBlanc their first professional losses. Ahead of their fights, they were unbeaten fighters until they shared the squared circle with Marisela Cornejo.
I think that gives Marisela an edge,
as she has that many more experiences with that many more fighters to draw from, as opposed to Alma Ibarra, who, on her resume, the best fighter that she's ever fought really is Raquel Miller. And Raquel is a quality operator. But the buck stops there as far as Alma Ibarra's resume, unless we forget that is a fight that Alma lost.
I think Marisela has an edge here, right, though.
This fight's taking place on March 18th via Ring City, USA, where we last saw Jelena Marjanovic, the then unified featherweight champion Jelena Marjanovic, in action. And I like the opportunity that Ring City is providing these fighters. These fighters that maybe they're not with a major promoter fighting on a major platform, but they're still talented enough. They can put on a show so long as they are given that opportunity. I'm looking forward to this upcoming Cornejo versus Ibarra fight, and we'll talk more about the fight itself and its aesthetic as the fight date approaches. And finally, Eddie Hearn very recently outlined Bivol's potential foes. First, Craig Richards, followed by Gilberto Zurdo Ramirez. Finally, Artur Beterbiev. Fast Eddie was very recently quoted as saying, "We're talking, and I've offered Ramirez the Bivol fight. The conversation with Dimitri is to fight Craig Richards, and if he wins, then fight Ramirez after that," Hearn told IFL TV. "I like the Gilberto Ramirez fight. That's another one I'm trying to make for the summer. But I would like to give Craig Richards the opportunity first against Bivol. If Joe Smith wins the world title, they'll do Beterbiev against Joe Smith. And that's a really good fight. Together with Bob Arum, we'll make Beterbiev against Bivol. It's an absolute pound-for-pound great clash. The problem with Dimitri Bivol is he's not a household name yet, and he's been making great money. Now that the market has readjusted and it's been much more difficult for him to get fights, Bivol has had a rough go-around finding a feasible road to the ring during the global pandemic. He is one of the lost remaining world-class caliber fighters who didn't fight in 2020 altogether, joining the likes of Manny Pacquiao, Keith Thurman, Andy Ruiz, Nonito Donaire, and Artur Beterbiev. First thing I want to say is that it seems that Eddie Hearn is being rather presumptuous in his assertion that Artur Beterbiev is going to make it through the Joe Smith Jr. fight. I don't know that Artur makes it through that fight with any certainty. That's a crackling fight in and of itself. That's a fight where both guys,
they hit hard.
They're bringing some heavy artillery to the table. First, Joe Smith, he's got to make it past Maxim Vlasov. That fight was rescheduled as a result of Maxim testing positive for COVID-19. We've no word as to when the next date for the match is going to be, and presumably, if Joe makes it through Maxim, he'll make it through to Artur Beterbiev. And as far as I'm concerned, that's a 50-50 fight. I understand that Joe doesn't come from the same amateur background as Artur Beterbiev, but Joe is as much an artillery guy as Artur is, and that fight might come down to who lands first. Joe's a real tough kid. Takes a great punch. He fought with a broken jaw in the Sullivan-Barrera fight. There are those out there that feel that Artur, while packing a sizable punch, perhaps the biggest punch in the entire light heavyweight division in and of itself, there are those out there that feel that Artur, he doesn't really take the best punch.
Been dropped 2 times.
Just putting it out there, I feel it necessary to say that it's not a foregone conclusion that Artur beats Joe. If Joe beats Artur, the undisputed light heavyweight championship might come down to a rematch between him and Dimitri Bivol, as Dimitri already beat Joe
in March of 2019.
Joe Smith Jr. being a tough guy that he is, he's racked up 2 victories since then. He's already rebounded in 2 fights that a lot of people favored him to lose. They favored him to lose against Jesse Hart, and they favored him to lose again against Deleta Alvarez. But Joe Smith Jr.,
This guy.
he will not be denied.
And he's from Long Island.
So first, Joe must make it past Maxim Vlasov for the vacant WBO title. Artur Beterbiev must defend his 2 world titles against Adam Diniz.
Artur's tune-up fight.
Artur's career has just been riddled with inactivity for such a long time. The guy hasn't had a fight since he became the light heavyweight division's unified champion. He hasn't had a fight since the Vosdik fight.
In October of 2019.
Now he's set to return to action against Germany's own Adam Diniz on March 20th, and what looks to be Artur's shaking off the cobwebs fight, tune-up fight, a necessary evil. In the in-between time, what Eddie's got planned for Dimitri is for Dimitri to fight the United Kingdom's own Craig Richards, and if Dimitri makes it through that fight, he wants to match him against Zurdo Ramirez. And this is confirmation of what I thought already. A couple of days ago, news broke that Zurdo Ramirez walked away from a direct order from the WBC to take on Staten Island's own Marcus Brown. A lot of people jumped to the conclusion that Zurdo was ducking Marcus, whereas from where I was sitting, it seemed to me that, you know what, if he walked away from that fight, it's likely because there's a better offer on the table. And as it turns out, that offer is the Dimitri Bivol fight. You fight Marcus, you're not fighting for a world title. But if you fight Dimitri, now you're cooking with ranks.
Oh, you are?
And in all likelihood, Zurdo stands to make more money from a Bivol fight than he would from a Brown fight.
Wonder what Zurdo's critics have to say about that.
Bottom line, I like this pecking order, and I like these fights.